Hello friends, a model-based approach provides a better alternative to the ad hoc development of web applications and its inherent problems. Hello and welcome to our channel Ulhaskumar Gokhale for Learning. The topic for today is Modeling Web Applications Part 1. Today we'll discuss the modeling specifics in web engineering. Let us start with the agenda. First, we'll have the introduction. Then we'll study the requirements of software application modeling. Then we'll study the roots of modeling. Then we'll discuss the use of UML for modeling. Then modeling specifics in web engineering. Then here in this we have the levels, then separation into 3 levels, then content model, hypertext modeling, then presentation level modeling, and we'll have the summary of levels, and then we have the aspects, phases and customization. So this will be the total agenda. Let us start with the introduction. A systematic approach and specification of the web application to be built in the form of visual models are recommended if you need to develop a complex web application. So here, what do we mean by this? When we are developing a complex web application, at that time we need a systematic approach, and we should have the specification of the applications to be built in the form of visual models. Without that, it will not be possible to develop a complex web application. Then models represent a solid starting point for the implementation of web applications, taking into account statics and dynamics aspects of the content, hypertext and the presentation levels of a web application. We'll discuss this in details. Then let us go to the requirements of a software application modeling. The scope of modeling spans along 3 orthogonal dimensions: levels, aspects and phases. So this is shown in figure 1. We'll be showing it in a minute. The first dimension traditionally comprises the application logic level and the user interface level, in the sense of an encapsulation of what and how of an application. So the application logic level and the user interface level, they define what and how the application is going to work. So this first dimension, that is nothing but the levels. It will have these 2 things: logic level and user interface level. Then next we have the aspect. So aspect known as the structure. So here structure means we have the objects and their attributes and their relationship to other objects. That forms the structure. And the behavior, that is we have the functions and processes. So that defines the behavior. These 2 aspects will be for both application logic as well as the user interface. So that will form another dimension, that is the aspects. And then next we have phases. Since an application cannot be developed in one shot, but has to be gradually refined and expanded during the development process. So during the development process, we have to refine and expand the application. So we have the development phases that will form the third application modeling dimension. So here, through successive refinement, the requirements identified in the requirement analysis are transformed into analysis models first and design models then, and the implementation will be done on that. So if you look at the figure, here we have the levels. So here we have 2 things: application logic and the user interface in the levels. Then in the aspects we have the structure and behavior, and in the phases we have the analysis phase, and then the design phase and the implementation phase. So this is how the requirements of a software application will have these 3 dimensions: levels, aspects and phases. Then let us go to the roots of modeling. The roots of modeling are found on the one hand in data engineering and on the other hand in software engineering. So here we have 2 things: data engineering and software engineering, where we can find the roots of modeling. So historically, Data engineering modeling focuses on the structural aspect, that is the data aspect of the application. Say, it identifies the entities, their grouping and their relationship. That is the major focus. So here we have the entity relationship ER model, that is the best model known in this data engineering. Then we have the modeling in software engineering, that will focus on the behavioral aspect to fulfill the needs of the programming languages. So today it is mainly based on the object oriented approach, and you are already studying that object oriented software engineering. Then the most important characteristics of object oriented modeling are holistic approach to the system modeling and central concept of the object. So everything is around the object, and it comprises of the structure and behavior. The object will have the structure and it will have the functions associated with it, and that forms the behavior part of that. Then let us go to the use of UML for modeling. The UML, that is Unified Modeling Language, is an object-oriented modeling language and seen as a kind of lingua franca in object-oriented software development. So lingua franca is nothing but a language that is adopted as a common language between the speakers whose native languages are different. So UML is a modeling language which is used for the software development of object-oriented software. Then UML is a visual language, so that helps the software developers to visualize and construct their new systems. It forms the basis of the most modeling methods for web applications. Then UML allows to specify the aspect of the software system in the form of models and uses various diagrams to represent them graphically. So in UML we have different types of diagrams. So here we have two types of diagrams. First is the structural diagram, that is for structural we have the class diagrams, component diagrams, composite structure diagrams and deployment diagrams. So with the help of this diagram we can represent different structures. Then for the behavioral diagram we have the use case diagrams and state machine diagrams and activity diagrams. So that will define the use cases, or say the activity diagram, it will define the behavior of the system. Then next let us go to the modeling specifics in web engineering. So the tools of the trade in web application modeling are basically not new. However, methods to model traditional applications are not expressive enough for specific characteristics of web applications. See, the characteristics of web applications are different, and that's why the methods to model traditional applications, they are not suitable. Means they cannot express everything which is there in the web application. For example, a traditional modeling language, so we will discuss about the Unified Modeling Language, UML. So it does not provide appropriate concept for the specification of hyperlinks, and in web application we have many hyperlinks. Then this was the reason why special modeling approach for web applications have been developed during the past few years, which allows to address web application in the 3 dimensions which we have mentioned earlier: levels, aspects and phases. So again we'll have the 3 dimensions. Let us see this. So to model web applications, the document like character of its content as well as its non-linear hypertext navigation has to be taken into account. So we have to take into account the document like character of the content. So the contents are just like documents, and it has a navigation which will be based on the hyperlinks. So it is not linear, it will be non-linear. Navigation will be non-linear. So this is the reason why we distinguished 3 levels when modeling web application. So this is shown in figure 2. So in contrast to 2 levels used in modeling methods for traditional applications. We have just now seen the 2 levels for the traditional application. They were the application logic and the user interface. So here in web applications, we are replacing the two levels with the help of these three levels: contents, hypertext, and presentation. And the other dimension aspects will be same: behavior and structure. And the phases dimension, it will have the analysis, design, and implementation phase. And one more dimension is added here, that is customization. So that will be added here, and it will correspond to the three other dimensions. Then let us go to the next: separation into three levels. So most methods which are used to model web applications follow this separation into three levels. So a clear separation of these three levels allows reuse and helps to reduce complexity. So when we are separating the levels into these three levels, that is the content, hypertext, and presentation, then we can have the reusability, this concept. That means once we develop the software, part of the software, that can be reused, and it will reduce the complexity. Then, for example, we could specify a number of different hypertext structures that will do justice to the specific requirements of different user groups and use devices for the given content. So here, as you know that the web application will be used on different devices. So as per that, the hypertext structure should give justice to that. And user groups. So user groups, they may be different. So as per that, we have to give these requirements. Then next is the content model. The aim of content model is the explicit definition of information structure. That means whatever information we want to give in the application, web application, that is nothing but the content model. So compared to the database schema in data modeling, this eliminated redundancies. So there will be no redundancy. It will have only one content. This means the structure of information will remain unchanged, even if the information itself changes frequently. So here you have to understand this. Structure of information will remain unchanged. So that means whatever structure we have defined for the information, that will remain unchanged, but we can change the information in that. So that is what is important for the web application. Then let us go to the hypertext modeling. So to design efficient navigation, content may be offered redundantly on several nodes on the hypertext level. So here, when we are navigating in the web application, at that time we can offer the content redundantly on several nodes. That means we can have different nodes where the content will be offered. So that will be at the hypertext level. Then due to the separation of concern, so this concept in software engineering you have learned. So every particular code will have different functionality, that is the separation of concern. So content is just modeled once in the content model, and the hypertext structure model just references to the corresponding content. That means we have to just write the content once, and then it will be shown to the user with the help of the hypertext structure. That will just give the reference to that. That is the hyperlink to that. Then in this way, users can find this information over several access paths. So whatever information the user want, he can find it on with the help of different paths. That is, the navigation will be easy for him. Then to prevent user from getting lost while navigating and to keep the cognitive stress on the users as low as possible, hypertext modeling should rely on recurring navigation patterns. So the navigation patterns, they should be recurring, so that will not the user will not get lost while navigating. So you can come back again to the main content. Then the next is presentation level modeling. So in turn, when modeling the presentation level, the focus is on uniform presentation structure for the pages to achieve a brand recognition effect for the web application among its user. So here what is important is uniform presentation structure. So that is for the brand recognition effect. So an application developed by a particular company will have certain recognition effect that determines their brand. So that is the first thing. Then although the visual appearance of the web application is of importance, aesthetic aspects are not within the major focus of modeling. So here aesthetic aspects means what? Color, pattern, texture, these are the aesthetic aspects of the application. So they are not within the major focus of modeling. They are not part of the model. They will be added after. Only will focus on the visual appearance of the web application. Then let us come to the summary of the levels part. So here a comprehensive model of web applications includes all three levels discussed here. However, the emphasis can vary depending on the type of web application. So we have discussed the content, hypertext and presentation, these three levels. So the emphasis will vary depending on the type of application. So web applications that provide a purely hypertext oriented user interface to a large data set will probably require the modeling focus to be on the content and hypertext structure. So for that, the content and hypertext structure will be important. Whereas presentation oriented web applications, for example, corporate portal or online shopping malls, so will most likely have larger demands on presentation modeling, because here the presentation is important for the online shopping malls. So the sale will depend on the presentation. So here we'll focus on the presentation modeling. Then let us go to the aspects part. See, following the object-oriented principles, structure and behavior, these are the two aspects, are modeled at each of the three levels, that is at the content, hypertext and presentation level. So the relevance of structure and behavior models depends on the type of web application to be implemented. So again, structure and behavior. So if we are doing modeling using object oriented, that will be related to the object. So web applications which make mainly static information available requires less behavioral modeling compared to highly interactive web applications. Say here, if you take the example of e-commerce application, it is highly interactive, so it will need more behavioral modeling. Whereas if you are just providing some static information, it will need less behavioral modeling. So e-commerce applications, it provides search engines and purchase order functions. So there will be a bucket where you can put your items, and then that will be again the user will interact with that. You can withdraw items from that, and so in this way that will be more interactive. Then let us go to the uniform modeling formalism. So here we have to first understand what is formalism. Say a modeling notation defines the rules according to which a model is built. It defines the textual or graphical syntax of a model. Then modeling notation is called as modeling formalism if along with the syntax a precise meaning is defined. So when along with the syntax we define the precise meaning, then it becomes modeling formalism. So with respect to mapping the different levels, it is recommended to use a uniform modeling formalism for a structure and behavior. So here when we are using on some computer aided software engineering tool, case tools, at that time we can make use of this uniform modeling formalism. Naturally, this modeling formalism has to cope up with the specific characteristics of each of the three levels. So again, the three levels, that is content, hypertext and presentation, they will come into the picture. So that is uniform modeling formalism. Then let us go to the phases. So the sequence of steps or phases to model the levels should be decided by the modeler. So here, depending on the type of web application, it should be possible to pursue an information driven approach, that is starting with the content modeling, or a presentation driven approach, that is starting with the modeling of the application presentation. So we have different approaches. We can go with the information driven approach or with the presentation driven. Then let us go to the model based development. So model based development in web engineering contradicts somewhat the often found practices in web project, comprising, that is, for example, short-lived development cycles and the desire for agile methods. So these are two things which are generally there. So the model based development is contradicting with that, will not go with that. So model based approach counters this situation with a comprehensive specification of a solution model, and if appropriate case tool support is available, the possibility to automatically generate the prototypical web application. So here, what is prototypical web application? That is nothing but prototype of the web application. So if appropriate case tool, that is the computer software engineering tool, is available, then a model based approach, we can develop the prototype with the help of that. Then models also ensure sustainability of solution ideas in contrast to short-lived software solutions. So here we can sustain the solution ideas, and again we can reuse those ideas in the next application. That is what is the advantage. Then in addition, the communication among the developers of a team as well as between the customer and developers is improved with the help of the model based development approach. Then let us go to the last part, that is customization. So the inclusion of context information in the development of web application plays a significant role to allow, for example, personalization, multi-delivery and location-based services. So many times you might have experienced this. They will ask you to share say your location. So that is for nothing but the personalization part. So here, so the context based information that will be required there. So customization consider the context. So for example, user preference, device characteristics or bandwidth restrictions, and allows to adapt to the web application accordingly. So these are three things: user's preference, what the user is preferring, then what device the user is using, that is the device characteristics, or bandwidth restriction. That means if the bandwidth is low, at that time the web application will have to adapt itself accordingly. Then next, it influences all the three web modeling dimensions of the content, hypertext and presentation with respect to structure and behavior, and should be taken into account in all phases of the development process. Here, whatever levels we are having, content, hypertext, presentation, then aspect, we have the structure and behavior and the phases. So it will, all things have to be taken into account. So handling context information is therefore treated as an independent modeling dimension. So that's why we have added this as the fourth dimension, that is the customization. So it will have four dimensions now: level, aspect, phases and customize. So with this we come to the end of this video. If you have any questions, you can contact me on Facebook, Twitter, Gmail or Instagram. Then if you like the video, press the like button, share with your friends and subscribe to our channel Ulhaskumar Gokhale for learning. Then don't forget to press the bell icon so that you get notifications for future videos on this subject, that is web engineering. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day.